Saluti a tutti, mi chiamo Francesco Petrarca o più noto come Petrarch. I am an Italian scholar and a poet, though I trust that all of you already know me, which I am extremely thankful for. I just wanted to say that I am extremely thankful for being able to play an essential role to make all the classical teachings greater once again, as I think they can help us to build a better and more innovative future. I also wanted to just say thank you to everybody who appreciate and study my work. Grazie. Now if I may, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I was born in Arezzo, Tuscany in 20th of July, 1304, to a family of four, which included my father, Ser Petrarco, my mother, Eleta Cagnani, my brother, Gerardo Petrarco, and myself, Francesco Petrarca. I was born in Arezzo because my father had just been exiled from Florence by Dante of the Black Gulfs due to some complications. And we lived couple of tough years in Arezzo, but we finally moved out there and moved to Avignon in France in 1312. Me and my brother Gerardo only stayed in Avignon for 4 years because in 1316 our father sent us to study law in Montpellier to follow our father in his footsteps as a lawyer. In 1320, we finished our law studies at Montpellier and continued back at Tuscany. Only this time, it was at a city called Bologna. Despite our fathers wanting for us to follow in his footsteps as a lawyer, deep inside, I always wanted to be a poet. I've always loved classical literature, especially those of ancient Rome and Greece, as I would study them every time I had some free time. I remember my first poems were about my devastation of my mother's death, which happened in 1319. I wrote these poems in my time in Montpellier and a few at Bologna. When my father died in 1326, I was less devastated because when my father died, I was finally free of his studying law, and I could finally pursue my true ambitions, which was becoming a poet and focusing on the classics. I began my journey as a cleric and traveling throughout Europe, recovering old works from ancient Rome and ancient Greece. And I did that because I think that those works can actually help us for our own development in the coming future. I also started by writing a few church-related works, which were written in Latin. So the majority of the people would understand because Latin is indeed the language of the people. But among my many works, I think the most heartfelt, the most memorable, and the most famous are my works for Laura. Laura, Laura, Laura. Laura is a girl I met at the St. Clair Church in Avignon, and I've been madly in love with her ever since. Unfortunately, as I am a cleric, I am not allowed to be with Laura. Every time I write a poem or a sonnet to Laura, I always pour my heart and soul into the poems. And apparently people started to follow me in expressing their emotions into poems, which I am very flattered by. Okay, so now back to the present. It is now, I am now considered in Italy as one of the most important figures of my time, which I again am extremely thankful for. Back in my prime days, I just continued traveling throughout Europe, rediscovering some works, translating them to Latin, and even sharing them to others. And apparently I'm the first one to think of this idea of recovering forgotten works and rediscovering them for our own development for the future. And apparently I even inspire others to do so, which I must say is an incredible self-achievement. And in my time, rediscovering all those forgotten works, I also thought of this one idea. This idea is my belief of the human capability. I believe that we humans can achieve greatness and success independently without being dependent on things like the church. Now, people might say that this belief of mine actually goes against the church, But what I say is that it can actually help one reach salvation, and it can help one morally. And personally, I think that the church's stance on things like classical literature and science is truly garbage. It's truly barbaric. I say this because it can harm one's process of learning because it clouds their judgment. I, for one, believe that we humans should not be entirely dependent on the church. Instead, we should trust our own capabilities because our hard work and devotion can lead to great success. But as a devout Christian, I stay loyal to my religion. But that does not mean I can't believe my belief of human capability. We humans should be able to be responsible for our own successes. We are responsible for our own well-being, and we can be responsible for our own success by cultivating the mind. We can cultivate the mind by doing spiritual exercises, which includes reading and writing, which is my personal favorite. Now the date is 19 July 1374, and tomorrow is my birthday. But lately I've been feeling quite unwell, and I thank all of you who are wishing me a speedy recovery, but I fear that this might be my last few days on earth. So I just want to say that I hope that I will never be forgotten, and I hope that I will be remembered for what I've contributed to the world. It has been a good ride. Adio, amico mio.